Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got a tiny little 3-game slate to choose from here on a Thursday night in the NBA. In this one, we are taking a look at the Portland Trailblazers at home versus the Nets, continuing to struggle over their last couple games on the road. Also have another game video and our player props video up for you today, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us each and every weekday of this regular season. Also head to thelines.com. Nate and gang have great written content up there for you guys all season long, including our great odds finder tool where you can go ahead and make sure you're shopping those lines to the best of your ability across those U.S. sportsbooks, getting the best juice available there. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into this little 3-game slate and then talk Nets and Blazers.
Yeah, this is the only one with a close line here. Nets are plus 2.5 at Portland, opened closer to a pick'em. And then Portland's been gaining a little bit of steam, but not as much as you'd expect. Then we got Spurs plus 7 at the Kings. Totals creeping up all the way to 237.5 there. And Pistons are plus 9.5 at the Clippers. That total's also been bet up to 217.5. Paul George is questionable for that one, so that will have a huge impact. Cade Cunningham, of course, still out for the Pistons. Looking at the Nets, Blazers here. We were pretty confident about the Kings beating the Nets after they lost to the Lakers. Quite a dubious distinction there. But we weren't really sure what to make of the total because they had been playing such good defense until they sputtered against the Lakers. But we kind of looked at it like the honeymoon phase is over with Jacques Vaughn. They might get back to who they are in terms of their personnel. Did not see that beatdown coming. 153 points, the most the Kings have scored since 1985. They had 23s. They had 66 paint points, and once again, Brooklyn couldn't get a rebound to save their life. 43-29 disadvantage on the boards. This is exactly the type of problems we saw under Steve Nash. Jacques Vaughn taking over was more of a Band-Aid than a full stitch job, I guess, if you will. And, I mean, you got to look at this as some of the makings of a team just quitting on the floor when you gave up that many points. And then you get what Kevin Durant says after the game. Just to reiterate, he lists everybody by full name in the starting lineup. What, you want Joe Harris, me, Royce O'Neal, Nick Claxton, and you want us to win games?
Called out Ed Sumner.
Yeah, left somebody out there. Just completely throwing his teammates under the bus and saying, like, these guys aren't good. And I'm out here, a week after saying something like, look, if you're going 1-on-5, you're going to turn the ball over, meaning that he gets no help on offense right now. Kyrie still suspended for this game. He might return to the team on Sunday is the word. But, I mean, the Nets are, it is getting late early here. They're probably going to wait and see how things gel when Kyrie gets back in there. But if they don't look any better, I think we might actually see Kevin Durant shopped on the market here, which is an interesting case. And Portland was one of the teams that were in the mix for Durant this offseason, and they would have gotten a lot more interest in futures markets if they had picked him up here. But as it stands, they're flying under the radar and doing just fine. 11-3 against the spread, and they are one of our favorite teams to bet on. Got them at the Pels last week on the money line, and they go ahead and just win. Their defense is great. It's sixth in defensive rating. It's just a complete opposite from the Portland teams we've seen over the last decade, right? Where it's pace, score, play no defense because we have, because of our roster construction. And Jeremy Grant, Josh Hart, Yusuf Nurkic all playing great individual defense. And the Pacers have slowed it down, 28th in pace, much more deliberate. They seem to be built to have success in the playoffs now. You look at home, though, they do trend to play higher scoring games. They played a little bit faster on the road, but at home, much more efficient. So scoring 115.7 versus just 105 on the road. And their defensive rating is 5 points worse at home. The games are totaling 229, and you got a 220 total here. I would definitely be interested in Portland's team total, first and foremost, after what the Kings did here. And then looking, I would lean towards the over in general here. Portland and the over seems like a fine parlay. I don't know why odds makers are expecting things to change. Like 2 nights later, this is the last game of the road trip for the Nets. They know Kyrie's probably coming back when they get home. There's no reason for them to be galvanized here. Especially, I mean, I guess they could react to KD's comments positively to be like, let's show him we can play. But I mean, they defensively, there's just not a lot of good personnel out there right now. And offensively, there's just way too much on Durant's shoulders. I don't see how they beat this really good Blazers team.
I'm chuckling to myself thinking about Ed Sumner in the mirror, like, all right, man, we're going to show them what we're made of. Like, it's not fair, dude. It's not fair to KD. I mean, he doesn't handle it well. I mean, his comment was also like charged with sort of like defense against why he was requesting a trade originally. And so that was a part of his response was, I was requesting a trade because who did you think was going to get blamed when exactly what I thought was going to happen happened? And we're 6-9 and we can't play defense. And I have the highest usage rate of anybody not named Luka Doncic right now. And I can't, I can't do it all by myself. And truly, he has to do it all by himself at this point. After Kyrie, I mean, he's averaging 30 a game right now. KD is with pretty good splits, man. 52%, 35 from three. Almost 10 free throw attempts a game. Still diming people up with 5 assists, 6.5 boards, like 2 blocks a game, a steal a game. He's doing everything. Kyrie's averaging 27 a game in the 8 games he's played. Nick Claxton is your next highest scorer at 11.5 a game. Royce O'Neal's at 10 a game. Seth Curry's under 10 a game. Cam Thomas, Edmund Sumner, Joe Harris. Anybody in the last 3 especially, Seth Curry, Cam Thomas, Joe Harris, there's no offense coming from those guys. So like, what do you expect from this team right now? They're bad on defense, but they're not as bad as we, when they were the hardened Kyrie KD Nets, and you just go look at every single defensive stat and be like, Jesus, they're not even trying. They're happy to win 130 to 122. And now it's not even the same thing. It's just a matter of they're not good on defense, but they're not actually as bad as they've been. They also can't score the ball. And what you said about Jacques Vaughn is entirely right. That was entirely my point as well. You brought it up first where you were like, oh man, I don't know, this Kings game. I think that this is a clear Kings win. I'm going to go ahead and make clear that, like you were saying, I'm going to make clear that like I'm telling you that the Nets, this is a fluke, right? Like since Jacques Vaughn took over, nicer defensive rating, playing a little bit more efficiently and with better pace. But those wins that he's had were against Chicago and against the Knicks at home and against the Charlotte Hornets, Washington Wizards, and the Clippers on the road, right? And then they've lost a bunch of games to good teams. All those teams I just said, I'm not a fan of. I mean, beating Chicago at home was kind of a rally around Jacques Vaughn kind of game, as that was the first game that they played after Steve Nash left. And then they lost that game. They beat the Knicks, who I'm not really sure what to make of that team yet. We'll see. I'm waiting for Tibbs to get fired. But the other teams that they lost to, that they beat, are bad. The teams that they lose to are good. This team is good, and Portland needs to start getting that respect, right? I mean, the first starting point we talk about is Brooklyn can't rebound. You said that in the Kings game, dead last in rebound percentage this season now overall. And then, from there, it's what you said. It's the team that they finally constructed around Dame that we've been waiting for. Jeremy Grant is the piece that we've been waiting for. Shaedon Sharpe, Justice Winslow, even Josh Hart. These are perfect players to play alongside Dame that he never had. Even when you look at the comparisons for the guys that were playing around him, like a Norman Powell, maybe somewhat comparable to a Josh Hart in like an undersized rebounding guard. Not the same. Josh Hart's getting those boards, getting the sloppy points and all the sort of dirty work. And then so is Justice Winslow. I mean, all those guys you mentioned, Nurk's got a defensive rating individual of like 107. Shaedon Sharpe, 105, Justice Winslow, 104, and everybody else, Jeremy Grant, and even Anthony Simons, all have defensive ratings under 110. The only guy in the starting lineup in the rotation is Dame, who's like at 113. But he's doing Dame stuff, man, and that's all their offensive numbers are like literally Dame's numbers, right? It's just the personality of Dame. They're 7th in true shooting. They get to the free throw line the 4th most times. They're 8th in fourth quarter scoring. They're 5th in 3-point percentage. They turn the ball over an ass ton, and they shoot. Right now, they're shooting in the bottom 5 in terms of field goal attempts because that pace is a lot slower, like we said. But Dame time really is everything we just said. 3-point percentage, getting to the rim, turning the ball over an ass ton right now, as he's still sort of getting back into the shape of things and is pretty sloppy, as this team has the 2nd highest turnover percentage in the league. But everything they're doing on defense is for real, dude, and that's really what it comes down to. Last year, 12th in terms of, 3rd worst opponent 3-point 3-point percentage, right? This year they've dropped it all the way down and are finally in like the top 10 essentially in opponent 3-point percentage. And that's all because of those dudes I just said that they didn't have last year, starting with Dame, but then also obviously all the Winslows and the Jeremy Grants and the Josh Harts. So I prefer an over in this game but I don't know if the Nets are going to come along for the scoring. So to your point, if you're touching a total here, go ahead and feel great about the Blazers team total. But at the end of the day, odds makers have this wrong. And Kevin Durant is the only reason, the fact that he's stepping on the floor for Brooklyn tonight is the only reason this thing is not above 5 or 6 points.
Yeah, and there's a non-zero chance that Kevin Durant has a made-up injury and just straight up doesn't play after what he said now last night. You know, I mean, that's maybe the best way to treat this from a standpoint of like, all right, fresh start with Kyrie when he comes back. But I mean, then you'd be obviously sitting really pretty with the Blazers bet. I think you're just fine otherwise. Look, Durant has been getting all that defensive attention. He's not lying when he says that. He's failed to score 30 in 6 of his last 7 now. And in 4 straight matchups against Jeremy Grant, who's a decent matchup for him at 6'11", rangy guy who can make it slightly difficult. I would look at the under at his 30.5 points here. Because the Nets just might not be competitive like last time. I mean, he definitely could have got there against the Kings, but it was over. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting in our player props to look at how this game shakes out when you try to project that. I think you are much safer taking the Blazers team total over here, which, it's below their average. If we got a 220 total, they're probably about 112 on a team total, and they're averaging 116 at home. The key when you talk about free throws, allowing the 4th fewest for Portland, I mean, that's the only way Brooklyn was scoring in that Kings game. They went 30 for 33 at the line, KD 11 for 11. If they're not getting free throw attempts consistently, if Nurk is able to protect that paint without fouling, they're in trouble. Defensively, they're 27th in 3-point defense, so that obviously puts you in trouble against Dame and Anthony Simons. I worry that Portland runs away with this one. I think that's a much more likely outcome than that the Nets are suddenly fighting real hard in the last game of this road trip.
Yeah, I got to concur entirely. It's 2 teams still, just one team sliding in the Nets and one team that's actually on a surge a little bit and has actually gotten better on offense. We mentioned they got the 12th offensive rating in the league this year. Over their last 5, especially because Dame's been heating up and been playing, they are 6th in that offensive rating. He missed a few games, as we know, and then came back out. So since he's been back out, back to 6th in offensive rating, still with a second slowest pace in the league. So this isn't some weird fluky run and gun and just try to outscore the teams that they're playing as we've seen in the past. Got to believe in the Blazers right now, sitting at 11-3 10-4 in the season, 11-3 against the spread. So that's all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We got a couple other videos looking to stay hot. 3-1 last night on the player props once again. So until we see you next, happy betting.